a quiet stillness settles over the house where she once dreamed of holding her child. And on certain nights, when the walls feel too close and the shadows stretch long across the floor, she hears it again, a soft, fragile cry drifting through the silence like a memory trying to find its way back home. And every time it happens, she stops breathing for a moment, because somewhere deep inside her heart still believes there is something waiting for her, something she lost too soon, yet cannot let go. She moves through the hallway slowly, her bare feet brushing against the wooden floor, her hands trembling as she reaches for the doorframe. The sound is faint, like a newborn stirring from sleep, and she knows it makes no sense. But grief rarely obeys logic, and love never truly leaves the places it once lived. In her chest, a familiar ache rises, warm and painful, reminding her of the morning when everything changed, when hope slipped away before she even had a chance to say goodbye. She remembers the hospital room, the cold air, the trembling in her body, the quiet whisper from the doctor telling her what her heart already knew. The world outside kept moving, but hers collapsed into pieces scattered like broken glass across the floor of her soul. And for weeks, she moved through life like a ghost, drifting between what was and what would never be again. And the one place she felt anything at all was here, in this house, where she had planned a future that never arrived. The first night she heard the cry, she thought she was dreaming. She sat up in bed, her breath caught in her throat and her heart pounding. And she waited for it to fade, but it grew clearer, like a tiny voice reaching for her, calling out from somewhere she could not see. She followed the sound down the hallway, expecting it to disappear, yet there it was, soft, fragile, filled with a longing that mirrored her own. And she sank against the wall, unable to understand whether it came from her home or her heart. Every night after that, the cry returned, sometimes louder, sometimes barely a whisper. And she wondered if grief had found its own language inside her, a way to remind her of everything she wanted, everything she had carried inside her body for those brief, precious weeks. She never saw her baby, but she felt every moment, the flutter of possibility, the warmth of imagining tiny fingers wrapped around hers, the wild, brave hope of a life she was ready to give everything to. And now, even though the world tells her to heal, to move forward, to let go, her nights are filled with echoes of a child who never lived long enough to cry, yet somehow still cries for her. And she no longer questions whether it is real, because real is not always something you can touch. Real can be the weight of love that refuses to die, the memory of a heartbeat she once heard on a screen, flickering like a star in the vast, dark sky of her future. She does not tell anyone about the sound. People already look at her with careful eyes as if she might break again, and she is too tired to explain that some wounds do not close just because time keeps moving. She carries her loss quietly, tucked between her ribs where no one can see, and she lets herself listen when the cry fills the air because it is the only thing that reminds her she once carried a life within her, a tiny spark that burned bright even for a short moment. One night, the sound is different, softer, warmer, almost like a hum, and it guides her toward the small room she once prepared for the baby, the room she kept closed for months because she could not enter it to bear it. She hesitates at the door, her hand shaking and her breath uneven, but the cry grows gentler, as if encouraging her to step inside. She pushes the door open and the air feels lighter, as though the room has been waiting for her. Moonlight spills through the window, casting a pale glow across the crib she assembled with trembling hands. The crib that has never held anything but blankets folded neatly, untouched, and yet tonight she feels something shift, something tender, something invisible yet alive. The cry fades into a hush and she stands still, her heart beating in a slow, painful rhythm that carries both love and sorrow. She walks closer to the crib, every step heavy with memory. She reaches out her hand, not sure what she expects to feel, but needing to reach anyway. The air above the crib feels warm, almost like a presence, a softness that brushes against her fingers. And for the first time since the miscarriage, she lets herself break open. She sinks to her knees, the weight of months of silence pouring out of her like a river, and she whispers the words she never had the chance to say. I am here. I am still here. And something inside her shifts. The cry does not return in the same way after that night. It becomes less frequent, softer, almost peaceful, as if the small unseen soul has heard her at last, as if it understands she has carried the grief long enough and now needs something gentler, something like release. She begins to sleep a little better, waking not with fear, but with a quiet acceptance that some love stories do not end with goodbye. They simply continue in a different form. She opens the nursery door during the day, letting sunlight touch the walls, letting herself breathe inside the space that once felt unbearable. She places a small flower on the windowsill, a simple symbol of a life that bloomed, even if it never grew. She sits in the rocking chair sometimes, closing her eyes, listening for the echo she once feared and now cherishes, and she realizes she is no longer haunted, she is simply remembering. As the weeks pass, the cry becomes rarer, until one night it comes one last time, soft, gentle, like a farewell. She wakes slowly, her heart calm instead of racing. She walks to the nursery without hesitation and stands before the crib, moonlight washing over her. She feels the warmth again, the faint brush of presence, and she places her hand on her heart, whispering that she will always love the child she never met. And the room grows quiet, wrapped in a stillness that feels like peace. The house no longer holds the same heavy silence it once did. She opens the windows more often, lets the wind move through the halls, and she feels herself returning, piece by fragile piece. She visits the places she avoided before, walks through the world with a softer strength, and though she still carries the memory tucked close, she no longer feels like she's drowning in it. She is learning to breathe around the ache, transforming it into something that guides her instead of breaking her. People see her smile again, a real one, not the hollow curve she forced for months, and they don't know the journey she has walked through, the nights filled with unseen tears and tender cries, but they notice the quiet resilience in her, the way she holds herself steady, as if she has learned something sacred, something she doesn't need to explain. She knows grief will never vanish completely, but love has shaped her into someone stronger, someone gentler, someone who understands the depth of what it means to keep going even when the heart feels shattered. Sometimes, when the moon is full and the house is still, she sits in the nursery and listens, not for a cry, but for the silence, the kind that feels alive, the kind that carries memory instead of fear. And she smiles a small, bittersweet smile, because she knows her baby never truly left her. The present simply changed form, resting softly in the quiet corners of her soul where love lives without sound. She understands now that healing is not forgetting. Healing is remembering without falling apart. Healing is allowing love to exist even when the story never had a chance to begin. She whispers, "Thank you," into the empty room, knowing the message will reach wherever it needs to go. And she closes the door gently, not with pain, but with grace. And though she will always carry the echo of that tiny cry, it no longer haunts her. It holds her. It reminds her she is a mother in a way the world may never see. And that is enough. She walks back down the hallway, breathing steady, her heart stitched together by time, tenderness, and the invisible bond that grief could not break. Her story does not end in the loss. It continues in the quiet strength she now carries, in the way she has learned to love without holding, in the way she has learned to release without forgetting, and in the way she has accepted that some souls touch our lives only for a breath, yet change us forever. And so the nights grow gentler, the house softer, the silence warmer. And though the baby she dreamed of never entered this world, the love remains alive, glowing like a faint, unwavering light inside her, reminding her that she survived, and that her heart, even in its deepest pain, has always known how to keep beating on.